Mhm.
So with the of course, all of the talk about critical race theory, that was like
Mhm.
my speech before the Board of Education. That's where I
Mhm.
first started. I
Yep.
went viral or whatever. And
Yep.
there's a lot of pushback against that. Um a lot of people say that, well, there's a couple things. It's either it's not really being taught. You
Mhm.
don't want Black American history to be taught. um those are probably the most common
Right,
things.
that they're trying to get rid of Black history, and someone tweeted online that DeSantis is trying to get rid of Black history with his new program.
Yeah, I was like, that is the furthest thing from, I would never even support anything like that. Like, I don't believe that Black American
Right.
history should not be taught. In fact, I believe that I believe that more Black American history should be taught, with an
Mhm.
emphasis on the positive Black American history, because I think that our children do not know what we not they know they know the struggles, but they
Right.
don't know the victory at the end of the doggone
Yes.
struggle. It was
Yes.
We just weren't slaves and then Jim
And then
Crow and
civil
then
rights
civil
movement.
rights. I know
Right.
that trek. It's like, do you not understand? I don't think people
Right.
realize just how far behind Black Americans were, and the
Mhm.
progress that we made in such a short
Short
period of
time.
time. It is
Yes.
unprecedented. People
Yes.
around the world were astonished at the amount of progress that we had made. I
Yes.
want children to know that.
To know that. Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Right.
So,
Now,
it is insulting when I hear people say, "Oh, you just don't want history to be taught." It's like, that is so far from the truth. And I don't
right.
even I, I haven't met anyone that wants that, and I don't deal with people who would want that. And
Mhm.
so, that is just insulting to me. But under the with the critical race theory thing, have you seen it in your classrooms? Have you experienced, have you seen it floating around your schools or in the Orlando area? Have you ever
Not like what I've been seeing on the news. Like anytime you guys post examples in a classroom, I'm always blown away because I'm like, people are really saying this, and not that anyone's lying, because I see it. Like I see video
Yeah.
recordings. I'm like, who are these teachers? Like I have left as friends and teachers, and they don't even act like that. So I'm like, who are these teachers, and what? Why are they doing that? It just blows my mind away. And so the language people say critical race theory, but
Mhm.
the terminology that is actually happening in a lot of schools is critical pedagogy. And what it
Right.
is this is why conservatives get pushed back a lot, because we say critical race theory. But and then so the left, they're able to say, no, it's not. We're not doing that. Yeah,
Right.
you're technically not teaching Bell's critical race theory, but if you say, so the next time you're in an interview, if you use the term critical pedagogy, they
Uh-huh.
cannot fight with you, because
Mhm.
that has ideas of critical race theory in it. So when they say no, it's not in there, they're
Mm.
technically right. However, the practice that you're doing have ideas of some of the critical race theory. And so they don't want to admit that. It truly does. And yes, we know that because I always get this go back and forth with people on Twitter. I'm like, I'm just so over it. I know that critical race theory does teaches that race is a social construct. Yeah, it does. But it
Yeah,
also talks
I agree
about
with
the
that.
systems, right? And that part is fine. And it also talks about breaking down systems.
Mhm.
Fine. But you can do that in college. The problem is you can't do it properly in K through 12. Like you cannot do that. And so what you
Right.
have is these teachers interpreting their view of this, breaking down these systems of oppression, and they consider education as that system of oppression. And
Yeah.
so they're doing crazy things and crazy practices about what
Mhm.
that should look like. And
Yeah.
so, but I have not seen that in my time. However, However, I do know that some teachers say, a friend of mine, she had said that she's a history teacher. She's like, oh, I tell my students, America is just, we just oppress other nations, so they'll say things like that. Like I have heard that.
Yeah.
And now there's another teacher who teaches African-American history with me. It's funny because we share the same curriculum, we created together, but sometimes I'll kind of peep in her classroom just to hear what she's saying. She very much compares slavery, Jim Crow to now. So now that's the original critical race theory. So she's teaching how they would in college. So she's kind of doing it the original, not like this, saying that we're all oppressed. Like she's not doing any of that. But I noticed what she's doing is she's teaching kind of like the original intent of CRT. And I'm like, how is that helpful to compare things to slavery? And I remember she was getting so frustrated because her students didn't get the comparison of her assignment was look around to see if you see any elements of the system of slavery. And so she said her students were really confused by that. And I'm thinking, I'm confused about that. Like, give me an example. What are you talking about? And so she started talking about just where they lived in their environment. And I was just like, huh? Like, so she tries to make things fit. You know what I mean? Like, so I've seen her do that. So now this would not cause her job because it's not what DeSantis, she's not using the verbiage that DeSantis is saying not to use. So teachers can get away with a lot, like even with these bans, because I've seen them do it. Like they're not using oppressor, white supremacy. They're not doing that, but they're using other ways to, you know what I'm saying? So they're sneaking it in there.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing about the bans or legislation with against critical race theory or any of these type of the wokeism, all of that stuff. It is a difficult thing to understand and to stop people from doing, because first of all, they make up a whole new language. It's like you got to learn a whole new vocabulary of what a lot you like what I grew up knowing what racist was or racism was. Like that's not even what that means anymore. Like that it means a whole nother different thing. And you are so right. Like now that I know the term pedagogy, because I think I had heard you say, and I was like, let me get on the Googler, let me figure this out. So
it's wokeism. It's all this wokeism. It really is.
Yeah. It's the
it's
way
wokeism.
that you present information, that you teach a subject. It's not
because
teaching the subject, it's the way you teach the subject.
It's the way you teach it, right? Because you can do that with anything. Like I said, we teach the same curriculum because we created together. I don't teach it the way she does because I don't compare anything to slavery or Jim Crow. Like the only compare, if I had to make a comparison, what I did was the stereotypes. When the stereotypes of Jezebel, the stereotypes of Sapphire, which were used during slavery and Reconstruction. And then what I did was I said, okay, so point out anything on TV or caricatures that resemble those characters that blacks were portrayed as doing. Actually, this was during the Jim Crow era. But then the people that were emulating those stereotypes were Black people. So I wanted to get them to let them know that you're taking something that was used as something to dehumanize us, but you're making light of that. You're praising those things like Medea, like Cardi B, like and then they just picked out different characters that Real Housewives. Like those are characters. They were able to see that those are characters that these are characters that they use to, again, to humanize us, but we're making light of that, and we're doing it ourselves. White people are not calling us Jezebels. White people are not calling you coon. Black people are.
Right.
And so I wanted them to see that these stereotypes are harmful. Like we're doing the same. We are doing the same thing that was done. So we're dehumanizing each other.
Right.
They don't have to do it. We're doing it
Right.
ourselves. So that was my whole point. So if I wanted to compare anything to Jim Crow, that was it. Just the characters that we are emulating that
Right.
was once meant to harm us, and we're making light of it and doing it ourselves to each
Yeah.
other. So that
Yeah.
would be the only comparison that I've ever done.